as promised, I will give a talk about basically a progress report on the overall ocean ecosystem. And with that, I'll just share my screen and get going. Share. Here we go. Technology. Getting there. Share. Okay. So, yes, so this is a talk that I put together, obviously in collaboration with my colleagues in the OPF Core team. And I'll just, basically, this is what I'm going to cover. So a top level overview about ocean. And then I'm going to talk about several teams in the ocean ecosystem, the OPF Core team, the teams working on third-party markets, the various teams working on product contracts, and just a brief survey of a bunch of OceanDAO teams, because, you know, just like Alex Nafis was talking about a minute ago, OceanDAO itself has grown a ton, and the ocean ecosystem overall has grown a ton in the last year. So, you know, rewind 2, 3, 4 years, it was mostly the Ocean Core team, plus the ambassadors in a bit, but, you know, now it's just much, much bigger, and it's worth celebrating that, as well as giving a bit of a survey to everyone to see what's going on. So that's what this is. This talk is largely about, but also I will zoom in on the specific progress of the OPF Core team in terms of roadmap, past and future. So with that, let's get going. So top level overview. It's always good to remember, you know, why are we here? And we're here to open up data while maintaining privacy, to unleash a data economy towards self-sovereign data for individuals and groups, to shift us from this shadow data economy with the likes of Facebook, where it's opaque with concentrated power, to an open data economy that's transparent and permissionless. And you know, by leveraging the tools of crypto wallets, exchanges, DAOs, etc. And Ocean is really this sort of tool meant to link the world of data and all the wonderful tools that crypto has to offer. So that's the mission, basically this. And, you know, we have the blog posts, etc., that talk about this. And it's like we've been doing for a few years now, and it's wonderful to see more and more people, you know, joining us with that. Ocean is a few things, right? It is, you know, first and foremost, this community, this ecosystem, all of you in this call, individuals and organizations driving to this mission, right? It was initially kicked off by Ocean Protocol Foundation. It's also a set of tools as public infrastructure to facilitate that mission, to help that mission. You know, Ocean Market, the backend tools, the smart contracts, etc. And it's got a token, the Ocean token, with incentives to grow and sustain the ecosystem. So it's many things at once. And how we think about it in terms of traction and overall, we often come back to this Web3 sustainability loop. And it's modeled after, in some ways, after the Amazon flywheel, where in Amazon flywheel, as it has more and more people coming to its site, then that incentivizes more and more sellers to place their wares, which means there's more and more wares for sale, which increases the customer experience. You know, there's more selection, and with more selection and good discovery, then you have more people coming yet. So it loops around, and it just can't help but grow. It's a similar thing for the ocean ecosystem in this Web3 sustainability loop. On the right, it's this data ecosystem, you know, this vision of 1,000 data marketplaces powered by Ocean tools. And Ocean itself, the community gets a small cut of that. And the bulk of that revenue then goes back into a curation aspect, which is basically OceanDAO. And the money from that, plus the initial OPF Treasury and Ocean Network rewards, all feed into the DAO as well, towards teams working on, you know, core software, integrations, apps, outreach, unleashing data, and so on, just like you guys have seen in the town hall today. You know, complementary to that is data farming, and data farming is more automatic version towards, you know, driving towards the ROI and mission, and the subjective, the squishy stuff is OceanDAO. So that's the heart of, you know, what drives us in terms of a specific pattern on this vision, which is this Web3 sustainability loop. So overall, you know, if we can grow traction in the right, then it will grow network revenue and grow the number of teams working on Ocean, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a key constraint, of course, always is average ROI on money spent greater than 1.0. And so that's always a thing that we often focus on in OceanDAO. So this is the baseline against everything else that we do or planning against. And then you can say, okay, then what are the KPIs, right? And it kind of hints at here, these workers do work to grow Ocean token, network revenue, and data consumed volume. And the Ocean token, obviously, the higher that is, it leads to a healthier ecosystem because there's more funds towards teams to build out different projects, etc. But unfortunately, the Ocean token has a large speculative aspect too. So how do you focus on just the actionable side? And that's where network revenue comes in. So basically, network revenue is a small percentage of the total revenue in this ecosystem box on the right. And network revenue itself, you could also have network revenue from taking cut of swaps and so on, which is fine, and so on. But what if we focus on where the actual value creation is? And if you ask yourself, where is the core, the heart of the value creation? It's really when a data asset is consumed, whether it's a data set or whether it's computed data or otherwise. And this is what we call data consumed volume. And so that's basically the summary of the KPIs. And the one to really, really focus on is data consumed volume because it's actionable and it's drilling into value creation, which leads to long-term benefits. There's a whole bunch of different ways to drive traction of data consumed volume, but you can group them into 3 ways. Bottom up, which is things like having more people publishing in Ocean Market and consuming on it, having more developers building things, having more startups. There's also top down, working with large enterprises and consortia. And finally, focusing on very specific verticals such as DeFi, which is very bottom-uppy in the fact that in the way that it has low latency, et cetera. But it also has grown to a large dollar volume, right? There's $50 billion, $80 billion worth of value locked in DeFi. So it's kind of got some of the benefits of bottom-up and top-down. And Ocean technology is well suited to helping to serve the DeFi market. So those are sort of 3 traction pillars that we group, traction actions around. And you can do it as you like. So as mentioned, there's really, you can group the teams in the overall Ocean ecosystem in 4 ways. There's the OPF Core team, which is building some of the core stuff. There's the teams doing third-party markets. There's teams doing very specific product contracts. And then there's the many teams that have been funded by OceanDAO. So the rest of this talk, I'm going to focus on progress for each of these. First, OPF Core. So overall, the OPF Core team has 3 products that it works on. One, the one that's sort of best known as a product in a sense is the Ocean Core, the backend, the smart contracts, the drivers, et cetera, as well as Ocean Market, the front end. And of course, this is all open source, so people can fork it, et cetera, too. And these are, what drive towards the main Ocean USP of value propositions of things like data sharing while remaining self-sovereign, preserving privacy, all that, right? So that's what the core product does. But then there's a couple other essentially products that fit within the overall Web3 sustainability loop that are really critical pieces of that loop. The first is OceanDAO. And the OceanDAO product is 2 things. It's the software, but it's also you, the people, right? The teams that are part of that. So within OceanDAO, what the core team works on is, doing what it can to grow the ecosystem and towards decentralizing and long-term sustainability as well. And finally, the youngest product of what we're working on is data farming. And we think of that as a product as well because it's big. There's going to be a lot of Ocean allocated to it. And its main thing is to fill the ocean, to basically catalyze, not just 500 data assets in Ocean Market, but 5,000, 50,000, 5 million and more, right? And not just Ocean Market, but across 1,000 different data markets. So it's like liquidity mining, but tuned towards the open data economy. And so that basically helps, the initial kickstart to really get that flywheel really, really spinning, but then also to drive traction over the longer term. So it's these 3 core products that the OPF Core team focuses on: the backend in the market, the OceanDAO product, and Ocean data farming. To very quickly review, work of the last couple of years, 2020 and 2021. In 2020, a lot of the work was really building the Ocean backbone. Before that, we shipped a V1 and built prototypes. But 2020 was when the rubber really hit the road towards a product we could be truly proud of. And that really came as a first pass in V2, shipping computed data, and then full fruition with V3, which had data tokens to allow Ocean to play much better, much more easily with the rest of the Ethereum ecosystem, ERC20, etc. It also had AMMs for automatically determining the price of data, so resolving a long-standing problem, and Ocean Market, so to reduce friction for people to engage and to get inspired by, what can be done with buying data, selling data, etc. So that was shipped in 2020. We also shipped OceanDAO, like Alex Naffy's mentioned earlier. And it started just small, right? That first month was just 5 teams getting 5K worth of Ocean each. And we've grown from there. There's been a lot of work in the bottom-up side after that, improving Ocean Market and the back end, just iteratively after V3 was shipped. 2021 has focused on traction. We have to often say it's, the year of traction. And to be clear, it's the first year of traction. We also have, 2022 will be another year of traction, and 2023, because it is about traction, continued growth over the medium and long term, because if you grow over enough years, then you get to ubiquity. So in terms of these pillars, the bottom-up pillar, it means continually improving Ocean Market and the back end, as well as top-down pillar, working with enterprises, consortiums like Gaia-X and Katina-X. One of the big things was to fix high transaction fees. So the way we did that was to ship Polygon and then continually improving UX around that and more network synths. And a couple big ones for 2021 are scaling OceanDAO, which you have seen sign of course, and shipping V4 and data farming, right? Which is, the data farming is really strong incentives for data consume, but then solving rug pulls. This is a big prerequisite for us to ship data farming. With V3, we saw that there was a fraction of data assets where there were rug pulls, which made, staking, et cetera, a little more unsafe. So that's a prerequisite to ship data farming, is solving rug pulls, and that's part of V4. I'll get into the details of this later. So what I'm going to do now is take a few slides to just review some of the highlights of things that have been built so far in 2021, as well as point to some things that are a work in progress. So one highlight, this was early in the year, is compute to data in Ocean Market. So, we initially shipped compute to data in our V2. And compute to data, of course, is a way to preserve privacy of your data while still sharing or even selling data. So we had it in V2, we included it in V3, but only earlier in this year did we include it in Ocean Market. Why? Because there was a lot of UX effort to sort it out, to make sure the flows were smooth and so on. But we're very happy with the result. And, it's been in the market since Q1 or early Q2. And, this is just some different flows, but you can publish your algorithms, like on the left, algorithms like, say, a random forest classifier. You can, if you look in Ocean Market, you can now filter to various algorithms. You can filter to data sets or algorithms. You can filter to download or compute. And, when you're doing this whole end-to-end flow, you run the compute, you see your finished job, et cetera. Keeping going. Another core highlight is fixing gas costs, which I already mentioned this, but it was a really big one because when we shipped Ocean V3 last fall, gas prices were still reasonable. For about $20 US dollars, you could publish a data asset and do all the transactions related to adding liquidity, plus whatever extra liquidity you wanted to put in, whether it's $10 or $1,000 worth of Ocean. But, by January, February, gas fees on Ethereum mainnet had gone pretty crazy, and they haven't let up thanks to the boom of NFTs and more. So fortunately, Polygon and some other networks started to get more mature. So we did a survey and a review. We've been monitoring this a long time, and we shipped the very first network that with low gas fees was on Polygon. So we shipped that in Q1. And if you go to our docs, you can see all the details about it being shipped. And there's bridges, so you can bridge Ocean back and forth with Polygon, et cetera, too. But the main, the key thing for us initially was simply solving gas fees. And that's done. Another thing was we knew that as soon as we shipped to more than one chain, then if you point your MetaMask to say Ethereum, it doesn't show the data assets on Polygon or vice versa. So it was basically siloing the data assets from one network to the next to the next. We have since resolved that by making it possible where we're in an Ocean Market, you can actually select to see assets across many chains at once. And so if you look in the top right here, you'll see it's selected ETH mainnet, Polygon network, and Binance Smart Chain, which we've also shipped to. And it's showing you the assets across all three of these. And so that basically is a slightly different paradigm than before, where you would just point your wallet to a given network and see that. but this is how multi-chain happens, right? So, you know, in the crypto world, a lot of people are talking about the need for great UX in multi-chain as a big challenge. We acknowledge, we see, yeah, it's a great challenge, and we're very proud that we shipped this because we see that we have already quite a nice solution. And there can be more things to keep improving this, but this is already a big step. Another highlight that we've done so far this year is fine-grained permissions. So, for example, let's say you are a medical researcher and you want to access some medical data that's in a hospital in Germany, but the rules of GDPR, et cetera, can say, okay, you can only access that data if you are a credentialed medical researcher that also is domiciled in EU. So how do you test for that, right? And base ocean data tokens don't really have a way to test for that, but you can add fine-grained permissions to refine. So the way that you think about it is the following. If you go to a PG-rated movie, you just show up and you have your movie ticket. That's sort of like a data token. But if you go to an R-rated movie, maybe you have to be age 18 plus. Well, you have to show your movie ticket, but you also have to show some credential that demonstrates that you're age 18 plus. That's what fine-grained permissions do. So you have to show up and show credentials that the appropriate credentials to access that data. For example, being a credentialed EU researcher. So this works on the data consume side, and it also works on the marketplace side for different actions in marketplaces like publishing assets, et cetera. So we have built that support. It's really critical for many enterprise use cases, including our enterprise collaborators. So we work closely with our enterprise collaborators to develop this. A couple of good examples are selling automotive data within a consortium, such as Gaia-X, which we're a part of, or sharing data across offices in a multinational, right? So you could actually have and use Ocean for internal data sharing of an enterprise, right? But with specific constraints, so based on the fine-grained permissions. So that is something we shipped, pretty proud of too. Keeping going. The next one is improving dev onboarding. We did a lot of work on this throughout the year, Q1, Q2, Q3. And here's a recent highlight that we're also quite proud of. We know computed data is quite powerful. You know, we shipped that as our V2, a key feature for V2. And ever since, I talked about the front-end support for it a few slides ago. Well, another thing we've done is put into the Quickstart for OceanPy, the Python driver, a Quickstart specifically for compute data. And so if you go to the GitHub for OceanPy, you'll find it. And basically, it shows how you can walk through of Alice publishing a data asset and an algorithm, and then Bob getting the data tokens for that data and algorithm, running the compute job, et cetera, where Bob himself never, ever sees the data asset itself. But at the same time, he can see the final model in this use case, and that's the picture on the bottom right. And this is the example here is using Gaussian process regression, which is widely used AI modeling technique that's also quite powerful, actually. Now, some things that we're working on, we've made a lot of progress, is the following. Rug pulls. So I mentioned after we released V3, there was a fraction of people who were getting rug pulled. So rug pulls happen whenever there's a token whale, like, you know, independent of Ocean, just in crypto in general. A rug pull is when a token whale pulls out of their large position in a pool, an AMM pool, which hurts other stakers. In Ocean V3, you know, just the way that it happens to be designed, every publisher is a data token whale, right? And so if there's a small fraction of bad actors that basically want that, you know, choose to rug pull, they will, and they did, right? So it made it a little less safe for people to stake in Ocean Market. There was also another problem, which is there could be significant and permanent loss when you stake Ocean into a pool, because in the act of staking, the pool needs, it's two-sided. You need to stake both Ocean and data tokens, but this happens under the hood. So when you stake Ocean, it actually buys data tokens, and both the Ocean and data tokens are then staked. And basically in the act of buying, it's, you know, driving the price up and potentially causing slippage. And same thing when you unstake. So when you unstake from the pool's tokens, then the first thing that happens is it automatically sells the pool token. It converts the pool tokens to data tokens and Ocean tokens. And then the data tokens themselves are sold for Ocean, so that as a user, you're just seeing Ocean. And, you know, this, you know, it was a nice UX from that perspective, you know, where you just stake Ocean. but we discovered that the impermanent loss could be pretty high. So this is also a problem. And we saw this fairly early on, and we see why some of the activity in ocean market slowed down, because it wasn't quite as safe as we had hoped. So it led us to thinking about, okay, what can we do about this, right? And one of the key elements that we came up with, Alex, our VP engineering specifically, so kudos to Alex on this one, is what we call one-sided staking. And the base idea is that the initial data tokens are controlled by the pool, not the publisher. The pool mints the data tokens when Ocean is staked and burns when unstaked, right? So previously, when you're using Ocean Market right now, when you stake your Ocean tokens, it actually, when you stake your Ocean tokens, it automatically buys data tokens and stakes both of those, right? Now what's happening, you are just staking Ocean data tokens directly, and it's minting data tokens to match such that the price of the data token stays the same when you stake inwards. And it's the opposite going the other direction, right? When you unstake Ocean, it's basically burning some of those data tokens. That's the core mechanic. What this means, from the first bullet, where the initial data tokens are not controlled by the publisher, it means they're not data token whales. There's no opportunity to rug pull. And because when you're staking Ocean, it's not buying data tokens, this means there's no slippage going in. So there's no impermanent loss in the active staking. And same thing the other direction. And but it's worth noting there is still impermanent loss if that ratio of Ocean to data token changes, between the time when you stake A and when you unstake B, right? And this is like any pool out there, right? If you're in a pool of, say, ETH to Ocean on Balancer or something, then if the price of Ocean goes up 2x compared to ETH, then that's impermanent loss. And if you pull it right then, you're going to have some loss, right? That gets realized loss. If the ratio goes back down to even, then you wouldn't have impermanent loss. So basically the summary is rug pulls are definitively solved. We're very proud of that. And impermanent loss is greatly reduced because staking and unstaking Ocean into these pools doesn't cause slippage. It wasn't just one-sided staking. We actually identified a whole bunch of issues. And that's what this chart is about. Any of you, like Angela or others who are from the token engineering community, you'll recognize this. Basically, on the far left column is a list of challenges we wanted to solve. We want it to be simple to understand, build, and maintain whatever it is that we do. We want to avoid large price swings / impermanent loss when staking, solving price spikes at the beginning, also in market equilibrium, solving rug pulls, and more. Ocean v3, we tuned this basically, based on observations. So, these rows are tuned towards the challenges we saw with v3. And then we said, okay, what can help, right? So out of the balancer community, there's something called LBPs, liquidity bootstrapping pools. How do those help? Well, they help on a couple of things, but it doesn't quite solve a problem. What about one-sided staking, the mechanic that I showed you before? And it helps on most things, but if you have it fully one-sided staking, it doesn't maybe give enough of the incentive for the publisher to publish in the first place. What if you combine LBP and one-sided staking? Well, it doesn't really help. And you keep iterating until you get to the far right. And basically, the result is you can have something fairly simple, which is simply start with Ocean v3 design, bring in the one-sided staking, and then give about 10% of the tokens to the publisher as well, but vesting over time. Sort of like you see with teams doing token raises, where the founding team gets, say, 10%, but they don't get it all right away. It's vesting over a few years, right? Similar idea here. So that basically collectively then is, we did the analysis, and the result is this. We've also then said, okay, can we verify this more? And so we've had the side project going for quite a while now called Token Spice. And some of you have even in the community have even got funding to work on this. And one of the key things is saying, can we use Token Spice to verify that, to demonstrate rug pulls happening on Ocean v3? And then with Ocean v4 contracts, with the same agent behaviors, will it stop rug pulls, right? So there's ongoing efforts in this. And yeah, Token Spice itself is, a small but growing repository for agent-based simulation in general. So basically, we're doing some work on that for v4 as well. Another thing for v4 that we're working on is data NFTs. And the heart of this is, if you look in the picture on the left, basically in Ocean v3, the publisher publishes, and when they publish, they are claiming copyright. And they publish and create an ERC20 token. And then they specify, okay, we're going to have 100, 1,000, whatever number of tokens minted for this. And then, they can create a pool on top of that. And that's what we have right now with Ocean v3. And that's worked very well, right? There is a means to represent who is copyright. It's whoever published, as well as a means to have, licensing, right? So it's got very nice legal mechanics behind it that is, wired directly into Ocean in the terms of service, et cetera. Ocean v4, we said, okay, NFTs have blown up over the last year, especially the last 6 or 9 months. And with that, there's been a whole ton of new tools that have emerged around ERC 721, the heart of NFTs. So, how do we leverage those tools? And then we also asked, okay, well, what is ERC 721 truly good for, right? And, NFT means non-fungible token, and ERC 721 is the standard for non-fungible tokens. You can't swap, it's not like swapping a coin for a coin. It's like swapping a coin, trying to swap a carrot for an orange, right? They're just different things. Where there's only one carrot ever, or one orange ever. So in the case of Ocean, what an ERC 721 best represents is base copyright or an exclusive license against that copyright. And so that's how we're using it in v4. So at the heart of this, basically, instead of the publisher, the base copyright being represented inside the ERC 20 as whoever published it, now it's represented explicitly as its own ERC 721 token. So in v4, when you publish, you would get one of these ERC 721 NFTs showing up in your wallet as a publisher. This also means you can do things like transfer that license to someone else for them to have exclusive rights to be able to create and mint ERC 20 tokens on top, et cetera. It also opens the possibility for more than one set of licenses against that base ERC 721. So you could have data tokens for 1-day licenses and a different set of data tokens, ERC 20 tokens, for say 10 days, right? So this is what data NFTs are, and they're showing up, they're coming in v4 as well. Data farming. So we announced that we wanted to do data farming last fall, and we were hot and heavy to do it. We were really excited about doing it. But then we saw the rug pulls happening, and we realized we can't ship data farming until rug pulls are definitively solved, because data farming basically pours gasoline on the fire of whatever's happening. So if there's really negative behavior happening like rug pulls, we need to solve that first. So a lot of our roadmap for 2021 has been about getting everything in place to stabilize and to set ourselves up to solve rug pulls, et cetera, such that we can pour gasoline on the flames for data farming. Data farming itself is like liquidity mining, but focusing on data consumed volume, where data consumption is really where, the true value is created. So data farming is coming still. We're very excited about it. And it's only going to come at scale after v4 ships, hopefully right after. That's the aim. So to summarize, this is the roadmap for where we are and what we've done so far. So so far in 2021, in Q1, like I've talked about, we have computed data in Ocean Market, check. We have better dev onboarding. We fixed gas costs with Polygon. We've stabilized Ocean Market more. We've done a lot of work in Gaia-X and Katina-X and continued to streamline and grow OceanDAO. That's Q1. In Q2, we actually started work on v4 in Q2. And in fact, some of the one-sided staking stuff and more was even earlier. Also in Q2, though, we worked on refining computed data, fine-grained permissioning, the multi-chain assets not siloed, pre-pricing more smoothly, and more Gaia-X, Katina-X, OceanDAO. Q3, we've just wrapped that quarter up, and we've continued to work on v4. We have started to work more diligently on data farming, much more intensively actually, with planning around that. We've been refining computed data, refining fine-grained permissions. We've deployed to 2 more chains, Binance Smart Chain earlier in Q3, and as of today, so I guess very, very early in Q4, I guess, but essentially end of Q3, we deployed Moonriver, which was our first technology deployment into the Polkadot Kusama ecosystem. So very happy about that. We just announced a few hours ago. Also more on Gaia-X, Katina-X, and OceanDAO. And finally for Q4, we're working on federated analytics and learning with the Raven team, Ocean-backed stablecoin with a third-party team, IDS connector with a third-party team, more networks yet. Stay tuned, Gaia-X, Katina-X, and OceanDAO. And we are working very intensively on v4 and data farming. v4, like mentioned, v4 is about solving rug pulls and mitigating impermanent loss. It's also about data, NFTs, and also there's a lot of stuff on helping the community to monetize better. So more flexibility on fees when you're running your own marketplace, that sort of thing. What this means, though, is that even by the time we're at the end of Q4, because of the time it takes to do smart contract audits, and because we want to make sure that the front end of Ocean Market is high quality, we're not going to be able to ship V4 until January, sometime in January. Hot on the heels of that is when we will ship data farming at scale. Also in Q1 of next year, hot on the heels of shipping this ocean-backed stablecoin, we will be able to put the stablecoin in Ocean Market, which is something we're very excited about too, because that means that, you know, if the price of Ocean doubles, then the price of a data asset doesn't double instead it's just a stablecoin. Yeah. So this is basically the summary of the roadmap and what we're working on. We have updated our roadmap blog post that we published earlier in the year. We continue to update it throughout the year based on you know, our learnings, and now this image is reflected in that blog post and in general updated there, so you can check it out for more details there. So with that, I should mention though, of course, I mean, you're in the OceanDAO town hall too. OceanDAO itself has grown a lot, and the team itself has fleshed out a plan taking itself through to the end of 2022. And the summary is that it's towards more scale and sustainability and decentralization. So everything from, you know, referrals, softening the impact of whale voting, conviction voting for more stable incomes, and so on, through to the end of 2022, where by the end of that next year, we really want to have OceanDAO fully decentralized. Ocean Pearl will be a key piece too, because of the great work that team is doing on front end, et cetera. So I've talked about the OPF Core team work, but there's 3 other groups of teams that are doing awesome work in the ecosystem, and I really want to give shout outs to them. So first of all, there's a bunch of teams working on third-party markets. This is a very short list. There's many more. There's Ocean Market, which is live. The Big Data Protocol team shipped to market several months ago, and so that's live in production. The DeltaDAO team has worked with us on a Gaia-X reference market. So we're very happy with the work that the DeltaDAO guys did there. And I have a slide later showing that. And there's also a live demo of a Katina-X reference market. This is a consortium also for within Europe, but focusing on automotive. The publicly traded company WiseKey, we're working closely with them for their market, and it's focusing on physical art and other objects of value, leveraging their secure chips that get woven into the paintings, et cetera. And there's several other companies that are also working on marketplaces of, you know, large size and medium size that we're quite excited about and spending quite a lot of energy on. So stay tuned on that. So that's third-party markets. And, you know, there's 8 listed here, but, you know, Ocean Market itself has been stabilizing and getting a lot more refined over the years, over the last year. And now we're at the point where we're working with teams where one of our developers can do sort of a 2-hour working session with some team interested in launching their own market, just holding their hand, and within a couple hours, it's basically about forking the front end Ocean Market. It's on GitHub, and, you know, changing some CSS and some other things, such that within 2 hours, you know, you can have a decent local copy running towards launching a full-on marketplace, you know, in a short amount of time, days or weeks max, right? So that's pretty exciting that can be done. And this is all towards our mission or vision of seeing, you know, 1,000 data markets of various shapes and sizes. Next, we have several teams that are working on product contracts. So, you know, inside Ocean Protocol Foundation, we identified, okay, there's some things we'd really love to see. So we engaged with that, you know, we really wanted to have targeted contracts. So we've engaged with a few of those, and here's a summary. Raven Protocol. We're working with them. They have already added a whole bunch more AI and ML algorithms to Ocean Market. So you've probably seen things like random forests published, like I showed in a previous slide, and other many other algorithms that you find from the scikit-learn ML library are in there. You know, neural networks, logistic regression, and more. Now the Raven team is moving towards federated analytics and finally federated learning. So we're working with them on that, and very excited about where that can go. Raven themselves, that's their specialty, is federated learning, federated analytics in a decentralized way. So it's really nice to, have that integrated. We're working closely with Altoros for a data token first wallet. They have a very nice alpha and they're moving quickly towards an MVP. So this is where, if you have something like MetaMask, then, data tokens aren't first-class citizens there. So what if they are, right? And we see this as, a nice complement to the work of Real Data Whale, talked earlier in this town hall, the Alga wallet. So, we see therefore we have at least a couple strong teams doing data token first wallets as a very nice, as part of this overall data economy. DeltaDAO team has been doing a bunch of great stuff too. The Gaia-X demo and Katina-X demo, like mentioned, privacy review, and a lot of ongoing work around Gaia-X and Katina-X in general. So thank you, DeltaDAO. Datarella, they have also worked on a demo for Katina-X on parking. I'll show more about that. And now they're working on IDS Connector, which is another tool within the Gaia-X community. And finally, the UTU team is working on curation signals in the UTU app. I'm going to drill in on a bit of these. So Raven Protocol, like mentioned, they've been publishing ML algorithms in Ocean Market, like logistic regression and more. And stay tuned for some blog posts around that too. Next, DeltaDAO, here's a Gaia-X demonstrator. So basically this took Ocean Market, it's a fork of Ocean Market frontend, reskinned with Gaia-X logos, working closely with the Gaia-X sea levels. And it's live, so you can go to the link here and see for yourself. So thank you to the DeltaDAO team for great work here and elsewhere. Datarella, they built a demo for parking and working closely with Bosch, Fetch, and us. And so the Datarella Mobix team basically has built this out and demonstrated it just a couple of weeks ago as part of the IAA Automotive Convention in Munich. And UTU is focusing on recommendations, and their specialty is things like, hey, did my friend Alice purchase this data asset? Did my friend Joe consume it, et cetera? So you can basically see who in your network has been interacting with various data assets in Ocean Market. And that's another technique to help gain trust in different data assets. So just like we've been, in Ocean Market, we've been putting in signals on a locked and some of the SSI stuff like 3box, this is a complementary tool. So the UTU team has completed the first aspect of that, which is on their portal. The link is here. And the next step for them is to integrate this directly into Ocean Market itself. Finally, the OceanDAO teams themselves. So this is a big set, right? So you can go to oceanpearl.io and click on projects, and you'll see that there's, not even counting this round right now, there's 84 teams that have got funding, and more than 100 projects have been funded. So this just gives a, I just wanted to give you a snapshot of all the teams out there. There's so many, and it's really exciting to see. And remember, OceanDAO, the first grants were simply last December. So we went from last December with 5 teams getting grants to now more than 80 and counting. So this is a high level snapshot. And but you can drill in, and I'm just going to zoom in on a few. And I don't want to be a pick favorites or anything here. So I basically went through like the first number of teams alphabetically. Maybe next time I'll do it completely random. So Data Whale, I mentioned they're doing also mobile data wallet. So a nice compliment to the Altoros work. And here's some of the screenshots that were shared by Moritz on Twitter. So thank you, Moritz and team. RugPullindex is focusing on sort of like a Nielsen style ratings for data. And you can go to rugpullindex.com and see basically different ratings and different data sets where it's got this Gini coefficient relating several factors. And so Tim and others as part of that team have been doing some really great work there. Good job, guys. Evotegra is an example of building out high quality data sets, in this case for image traffic data and more. And there's quite a few teams doing that. And what we see over time is that the work for creating data sets, right now it's in OceanDAO. And as data farming rolls out, then it's going to be very natural for that sort of work to slide over directly into data farming. Ocean Pearl itself is a project of OceanDAO getting funding, and the results speak for themselves, right? You can go oceanpearl.io and see this beautiful front end. Right now, it's a project tracker to view the projects, to browse them to see what's going on. but the OPF Core team that is working on OceanDAO is working very, very closely with the Ocean Pearl team, notably Roberto, and they're basically iterating together towards this medium and longer term roadmap for Ocean Pearl to do much more, right? Basically become a really great front end for OceanDAO. So very, very cool to see. DataUnion is a nice example of collective bargaining or data unions around data, of course. And in its case, it's focusing on AI image labeling. So this is Robin and Co. And lots of very nice progress there over many, many months. Another example is Project Coral, which is a DataDAO around open science. And that project has evolved into what is now called Opscientia. And basically they're, working on open science with DataDAOs and towards data markets, that sort of stuff too. So some really cool stuff happening there. Vantage Crypto, a pretty large team. Many of you guys show up at every single OceanDAO town hall. We think that's really awesome. And by the way, many of these teams do. We think this is really great in general. One of the things that many people have asked for is how does Ocean handle streaming data? And there's a couple answers to that. One is with simply the static URLs, the data behind that can keep changing, right? So, you can have a Google Sheet with a static URL, but the data behind that is changing, or serving up, a different CSV that's served up from Amazon S3 that keeps changing however you want. So that's one way. The other way is to use a more native protocol for streaming data, such as WebSockets, WSS. And so this is what the Vantage folks are working on, as well as many other things around analytics and their own data market. So lots of great stuff happening there. The Ocean Ambassadors is one of the oldest teams in all of Ocean. It's long before OceanDAO was a thing, and it's going back years. And these days, the ambassadors are organized into 3 groups: the outreach ship, the tech ship, and the podcast. And so lots of great stuff happening there. Within each of these ships, they're doing things like moderation on Telegram channels, Discord channels, project trackers, many more things. So very cool to see and very excited. And, when OceanDAO was shipped and then got strong, the ambassadors program became part of basically another team within OceanDAO. So that we're basically harmonizing all the funding going through OceanDAO. So some highlights, and this is from a few weeks ago, 106 projects funded, more than 121 million Ocean voted. And now we've actually got Ocean being burned too, so which is part of the mechanics of Ocean. So that's very nice. A few other stats are below, 178 proposals submitted. That doesn't count this round, so even more now. So looking forward, a couple slides on that. This focuses a bit more on OPF Core team. So like mentioned, we've got Q3 wrapped up, and Q4 we're heading into that. The core team is really focusing on the V4, followed by the tee-up of data farming. And many of our third-party collaborators are working on some really key things: federated learning, ocean-backed stablecoin, IDS connector, and more. And then beyond that, kind of on purpose, there's lots of things that the OPF Core team could be working on in 2022. But we know that a big thing is going to be scaling data farming, right? So it's going to take up a lot of activities. And around that too, just stabilizing V4, Ocean Market, everything around that. So there's going to be a lot of working on that. OceanDAO itself will keep focusing on scale and stability, leading to decentralizing OceanDAO. There's going to be continued work on improving Ocean Market, the backend stuff. That's sort of the bottom-up stuff, as well as top-down, such as improving, engagements with enterprises, Gaia-X, etc. But data farming, make no mistake, is going to play a very large role within the Ocean ecosystem in 2022. Another way to view all this is, here's what's been done as sort of the core stuff from Ocean Core team in 2020 and 2021. So 2022, lots of twos, is also about driving traction and decentralizing. So the 2021 traction is sort of like meat on the backbone. 2022, it's about scaling data farming. It's about scaling OceanDAO, and then the bottom-up work on improving Ocean Market and backend, and the top-down work, like mentioned. So to conclude, in this talk, I've covered a top-level overview, reminding why are we here, right? The Ocean mission and values, unlocking data while retaining privacy. equalizing opportunities around data, the wealth created by data for everyone. And then I talked about 4 groups of teams in the ocean ecosystem: the OPF Core team, the several teams working on their own marketplaces, and with the dream of maybe there's several now, but in a few years, hopefully several thousand. Product teams working on product contracts to OPF, and finally the large number of OceanDAO teams. And I sampled a few, and just a couple slides on looking forward. And so, as a final thought, together we are unleashing an open data economy. So I've got just the logos from all the different projects in OceanDAO, and in addition to that, of course, there's all the projects in the markets and the third-party contracts, etc. So thank you all for your time, and it's been my pleasure to share this with you of what we're working on in the core team, but also what we're working on together as a whole ecosystem. Thank you.